it's highly pressurized old oil and it's a couple of million years old, that's fine too, but it's highly pressurized oil and it's still going to go on for a few years. So we need to drill relief wells into the surrounding area. 8 wells I've suggested, maybe they'll need more, and depressurize the area, get the oil and gas out. We know we can't stop the oil and gas coming out of the well, so if we can't stop it, recognize that we can't stop it and get it out and pipe it to the coast. Get it out because it's just polluting the Gulf and killing us and killing the animals.
What do you think is the mindset that is obstructing a whole systems approach like what you're talking about?
I have no idea, Kim. You tell me. I'd love to know. I don't know. There are no other solutions that I've heard. I've heard of silly things like atomic blast, which is just going to blow the formation open and release more oil and gas and create a catastrophe. I have no idea why they won't follow a solution that's a simple and the only logical solution that I can think of. As I've said, when you drill into a hole which is empty, and they try to do this top kill procedure where they try to put drilling mud into the well, but there were too many holes in that well, and you can only seal something if you've got back pressure. You've got to drive the oil and gas out of the formation to let the cement set in a quiet zone. You can't have roaring gas and oil roaring past and try and ask that cement to set. So when they go down with the directional wells, we're all waiting with bated breath for 2 wells that are not going to work. As soon as the wells enter the existing blowout well, all the mud is going to be lost down those wells, and you'll have 2 more blowout wells. We only hope that the blowout protectors work, otherwise they're in more trouble. You can't drill into a blown-out area, blown-out wells, unsealed well, and expect to get away with it. It just doesn't work.
You say in your article that the public really does not understand that deep water drilling is not just where the problems have arisen, that it's about high-pressure oil and gas drilling that creates the problems. Of the millions of wells drilled, you say, there are thousands of ticking time bomb high-pressure wells in existence, and new ones are being drilled every day. New risks are being taken every day.
Sure. This has been going on for a very long time. I've worked personally on about 50 high-pressure wells here, and when you start logging as a logging geologist, they're very nervous about letting you on a site to log at high-pressure wells because your job is to watch the mud weight like crazy. You have to monitor that mud weight for every minute that you're there. If things go wrong, they go wrong quickly, as you saw there, and everything blows out. So you have to, when you know you've got extra high pressure, you have to case that well with thousands and thousands of feet of casing. The one I worked on, we put in 8,000 feet of casing and drilled with inside that, but we allowed the cement to set over a period of a week before we went back to go carry on working on it. And it depends on whether they cut corners, whether they cement that whole section of casing, if they only put in cement halfway down to save money. It all depends on how much the investors want to spend and how much they want to save costs. So the job has to be done when you drill on high-pressure wells, and that's probably less than 5% of the wells. You have to do it well, and obviously corners were cut here or a shoddy job was done.
How many people do you think in your position who know what you know and have the experience that you do are looking at this saying the same thing that you're saying and frustrated and upset, who actually have the capacity to get in and do something but are being prevented or just don't have the access to do it?
I'm surprised that many, many more geologists and mud-logging geologists don't come forward and say something about it. I'm actually shocked because they're all working on the drilling rigs. They know exactly what I'm saying. They've done it in the past. And I think the fear for losing your jobs, I don't work in the oil and gas industry anymore, so I don't care. But the fear of them losing their jobs must be so great. And the buddy-buddy business of once you're out, once you rat out the oil and gas industry, you're gone, you'll never get a job there again, I think is what is keeping them from saying anything. And I find it disgusting when the Gulf of Mexico is dying, that no other geologists and mud-logging geologists and petroleum engineers who know exactly what I'm saying come forward and say, hey, Chris Landau's talking rubbish, or Chris Landau's not making sense, or hey, we've got another solution, we can do it this way. We had nothing. The silence is classically like the oil and gas industry. Say nothing and hope the problem goes away. Just keep quiet, say nothing, and eventually people will get tired of it and go away. But they've created such a big mess here, no one can go away ever again.
When this is solved, it's only the first of a succession of efforts that have to be put in place to preserve all the other deep wells that don't have the way secured so that this doesn't happen in all the other wells, correct?
Sure, you've got to be careful. In every well that you drill, you've got to be careful. You've got to put in cement. You've got to put in enough casing. You've got to put in maybe double and triple layers of casing to make sure that you've done a good job. You've got to put in cement all the way. You can't put in cement for 1,000 or 2,000 feet and say, hey, that's going to hold out. It held in 90% of the previous cases. We only have 1% or 0.5% blowout, so what the hell? We'll take a chance.
Let's talk about the forensics. The forensics that you talked about. What did you call it? Something dog, mud dog?
Logs, L-O-G-S.
Mud logs.
Mud log is a working two-dimensional piece of paper. As a mud logging geologist, you log the formation, you look at the bits of sample that are coming up, the crushed rock, and you put that down, whether it's sandstone or mudstone or limestone, and you record that every foot of the well. You make sure you know your formation well. At the same time, you record the rate of penetration going down the well, how fast you're going down in that well, see if it's soft or hard. And then you also record at what depth you're striking gas. The gas comes up while you're drilling. And as it comes up, there's a lot of gas. You warn the mudman to weight up the mud to keep it down. And you look for drilling at a background gas of 30 to 50 units, which is about 50 units is about 1% gas. 5,000 units is about 100% gas. So you try and keep your gas coming up, your background gas, not the spikes as you intersect different layers of gas, but you try and keep the background gas at a little less than 1%, 0.5% to 1% coming up the well. And the mud logs, we have recorded all of that. They tell you what bits you used, how much casing you used, what the problems were at 10,000 feet, 11,000, 12, 15, 20,000 feet. What happened, how much casing you put in, how much cement, how long you were out the hole. It's all recorded there. It's all the forensic evidence of what actually happened, what went wrong. Let's publish the mud logs for the whole world to see.
Absolutely. Bring it open source. Open source the whole thing. That's how things get resolved in a quicker way. Continue.
Right. So they're there. The mud logs are there. And when you finish the well, you get what's called the E-logs, the electronic logs, where people like Halliburton or Schlumberger, the two main people in the world who do the electronic logs, who run a sophisticated instrument down the well and check at various layers. Geologist says, hey, there's gas at 10,324 feet. And the E-logs guys are going to confirm, yes, that is gas, that is oil, but it's full of salt water. Hey, we can't use that one. That's a useless layer. Thanks for finding it, but it doesn't work. Okay, so we go on to the next layer. And we find more oil and we find more gas at that layer. What do the E-logs say? At that layer they say, hey, it's porous, it looks good, but for this reason or that reason it's not going to work. So in combination, those two, the electronic logs, which cost them a lot to run, and Halliburton and Schlumberger are the two people that run those logs, the two main people, the other companies. And they produce these things. BP have got those. The logs, the mud logs, are also emailed to shore every 6 to 12 hours to BP, to the Department of Oil and Gas, to many, many geologists and background people who are on the email list who are receiving information for that well, as I've said, every 6 to 12 hours. And the mud reports go in every 6 to 12 hours, and the company man report goes in every 6 to 12 hours. And so it's all documented, it's all backed up multiple times, and the evidence is all there. We need that evidence brought to the fore so we can solve the problem. If the main problem is a blown-out formation, a blown-out well that can't be sealed, which I suspect it is, let us know. We know that anyway. It looks like it's a blown-out well that can't be sealed, and And the oil and gas is probably coming up through the floor next to the well and along a whole lot of cracks that are